Additional things I hated about the X-Men movies include Wolverine's hair. In the comics, it seems like kind of a natural feature. Like, that's just how his hair falls. And in the movies, they've made it so that he is addicted to pomade. Okay? It doesn't look natural. He's got a ton of product in his hair. Wolverine wears hair product? Magneto's plan in X1. So stupid. Okay, let me get this straight. He's not gonna do stuff like destroy infrastructure until he rules the world. And he's not gonna do stuff like steal nuclear weapons from a Soviet sub, which is something he did in the comics. That was a very effective supervillain maneuver. But here in X1, his plan is to turn everyone into mutants. Sorry, the whole time I'm watching that, I'm going, this is the most crack-brained plan. And not only that, but Magneto kidnaps Rogue by using his powers to rip the lid off of a train car, and then using his powers to zap her with a hypodermic syringe. Why did he have to have the syringe flying sort of fakely through the air? He doesn't need it. He just ripped the lid off of a train car. Why didn't he scoop her up with it, and fly off? The Sentinels in Days of Future Past. When an X-Men fan hears they're going up against Sentinels, there's gonna be giant robots. And these robots weren't that giant, and they were tough, but they didn't look like Sentinels. I mean, it's almost like changing a character's costume or appearance just arbitrarily, as if, the beloved usual incarnation is somehow tired and spent. But it just seemed arbitrary. Like, I wanted to see giant robots, and instead I got these like liquid metal Terminator things that I've seen in other movies. What I haven't seen in an X-Men movie is a Sentinel. A word about Halle Berry. I do love her, and I don't think she sucked as Storm at all. Her acting was great. I think she was a little wooden at times, especially when she's flying. And those are always the fakest moments. And I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't blame her, but in X1, she comes flying up out of that elevator shaft like she's a freaking ballet dancer. And I'm sorry, she's all like, ah! You know what I mean? In X3, Jean Grey and Cyclops and Professor X all die. In the comic books, yes, everybody dies all the time and they're always brought back. I get it. But normally, you go more than 3 episodes before everybody dies. Here they got to the 3rd movie and they decided to kill the main characters. They all died. I mean, let's face it, the character of Jean Grey was ruined long before the X-Men films. Soon she became uber powerful, had to kill herself, and then once she's dead, of course, since it's a comic book, you got to bring her back, and then inevitably she's got to become Dark Phoenix again, and then die again. And that's happened a bunch of times, I think, to the point where Grant Morrison had Emma Frost quip to Cyclops, poor Jean, or poor Scott, Jean couldn't stop dying on you, could she? And that's basically true. Like, why did they do that to her? You can't put Jean Grey in a comic book anymore without, like, constant threat of her death and or being immortally powerful and evil being there. It's like she can't just go with the X-Men on an adventure, It's all about her. Jean. So some people might say, I'm really hard on the X-Men movies because I either don't know the comics or because I know the comics too well and am too attached to them. It just becomes about the quality of the film. I mean, the X films are kind of a hackneyed production overall, except for First Class and this sequel, which was pretty decent. But it's not as if the return of Bryan Singer to the franchise was like really looked forward to by me, like, oh goody, Bryan Singer's gonna come back and save it, because X1 was kind of like not that great. I mean, so again, like, it's a big whatever. Thanks for tuning in.